Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geri Petito Show. Guys, I'm doing something a little different today. We're not going to play my silly theme song. I have a very serious guest here with a serious issue. So I would like to introduce her first, okay? She's also a personal friend of mine. I've known her for many years. So, Dr. Mira, say hello, please.
Hello, people, and you can call me Mira.
Okay, sweetheart. So I will be calling her Mira, all right, but this is Dr. Mira.
Okay.
So I'm going to also have my producer, Doc G, come hang out with us because he'd also like to ask you some questions. So today we're going to be talking about dementia, Alzheimer's. But before we get into all that, tell everyone a little bit about yourself, where you work, and what you do.
Okay. So I work at a medical consulting company, and it's called Marquee. And I go to, they have about 80 facilities. I go to about 20 of them to visit patients. And I've been doing this for the last 30 years, and I started when I was one.
Wait, you said you started when you were one?
Yeah,
All right,
this
so
way at least, you don't know how old I am then.
okay, so but listen, elaborate a little bit on that. So when you were one, you went and knocked on somebody's door and said, come on, talk to us.
Okay, so what I was a caregiver for my mother. I'll tell you, it's the hardest job anybody can ever do. That's why they have that saying that one mother can raise 100 kids, right? But 100 kids can't raise one mother. It was the hardest job. At one point, while I was taking care of my mother, they used to tell me, "Oh my God, the way you," people that knew me, friends would say, "The way you look, it looks like we're going to bury you before your mother." And it's true. I run support groups in Monmouth and Ocean County of just caregivers. And I'll tell you, it's so visible the stress and the sickness that the caregivers have. And once they get past that of their loved ones being gone, they look totally different if they survive it.
So
So
go ahead,
I,
continue.
I took care of my mother, and then I was one of the doctors that took care of my mother. I had a corporate job in Manhattan, and I was so fascinated because he did research. Dr. Schuheim did research for Alzheimer's disease with several different pharmaceutical companies, and it sounded so interesting to me. And he gave me an opportunity to be on the research team. So I did that for 10 years, and I was really interested in it. Then I got this job as a patient care representative. So I go to different facilities and I take care of the caregivers. People forget, right? It's like when you're pregnant, everybody pays attention to you. The minute you have a baby, it's like the mother is totally forgotten. So caregivers are totally forgotten, and to take care of themselves, yet they're the pillars, because if they're not there, there's nobody for the patients to take care of.
I understand that. You know,
Is he drinking beer?
oh
Water.
no, he
No.
has water in that glass
Water.
bottle.
Water only.
So, my dad died of Alzheimer's. My dad had a beautiful, incredible long life. God was so gracious, even with the Alzheimer's. He only was, I think, maybe 5 years or so. I prayed, Lord, take him soon. But we kept him home. We were able to. So we kept him home, and we had caregivers come there as well, and we took care of my dad. He deserved it. But a lot of people can't. Now, my aunt, my favorite aunt, she's got dementia, and she's an artist, okay? And that was the right move for my cousin. My cousin goes there every day because we had to do it that way. And I know, a lot of people deal with this, and until you deal with it, you just don't get it. You really don't get the depth of how it is until you go through it with someone that you love and you're caring for. So, Mimi, first of all, I want to say thank you as a caregiver, as someone that worries about the caregivers because they do need prayer, and I could never do what they do like every day. I could never do what they do. So I always say, man, they're angels sent from God for these people who need them,
So
you
it's
know?
so true. And people forget them. The patient, there's a silver lining in this terrible, it's not easy to die.
You're right.
And there's a silver lining in this disease that the patient forgets to worry, okay?
That's right.
So they get better if they have hypertension, if they have hypothyroidism, they get better. Guess who gets sick? The caregivers. And I have lost caregivers before I lose my patients in the past. It's just a terrible, stressful
Wow.
disease. And it's a slow progression of the disease. So they give about 1 to 8 years for the lifespan. But I'll tell you a funny story. Ida, I can't say her last name, but it's so funny because she's a beautiful little Italian lady, okay? And she was diagnosed 21 years
See?
ago.
That's
And
heartbreaking. See?
her husband took care of her so beautifully, like you would for your dad, right? Not everybody has the luxury of
I know
taking care
that.
of their home. You were lucky.
Yep.
So he ended up in a nursing home, and she's still alive, and he passed away. So just to show you, it's just extremely stressful for the caregivers.
What would you like to ask her, Doc J?
With so many family members that passed away in my life and going into nursing homes, I understand that dementia is something that just, like you said, is progressive, but the early stages of it, is there any way that can be prevented like another 5 years or 10 years down the road to nip it in the bud, say less aluminum foil, and it just some type of different things that you can do? Any preventions?
That's a great question. If I had an answer to that, I wouldn't be sitting here interviewing with you. I'd be so rich. So the point is, there's research done every single day about it. And, every time I get phone calls when on the news you say, oh, they found a cure for dementia, right? So I'm sorry, I'm on call 24/7, so I have to, respond to some of these calls. Anyway, so people get excited when they hear on the news that they came out with it, but nothing is promising. Of course, you can take care of it by exercising to prevent the answer to your question is prevention, diet. And the biggest thing I was surprised at is that isolation was never as much as it is now. During research, they found out that people who don't socialize are isolated. They're very, very prone to getting dementia. So it's very important until the end as you can to make sure that you socialize and not sit at home and not move. And they recommend every time you watch TV, it's like 18 minutes of show, 12 of commercial. So during that commercial, you should be walking around. It's one way of, as far as prevention. Now, last year, they came out with a medication. I think Eli came out with it. It's called Lakemba. Now, excuse me one second. I have asthma. Okay. So, the problem with this is they say it's from moderate to severe. You know how you have cancer, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Dementia is not like that. Alzheimer's disease is more mild to moderate, moderate to severe. That's it. And Lakemba came out with this medicine they came out with said it's from moderate to severe. Or was it mild? Oh, yeah, sorry. I stand corrected. It's from mild to moderate.
Okay.
Now, the problem is, by the time you discover somebody has it, you're already into the mild.
Right.
So how do you justify it? This medication is for mild to moderate dementia, and it has a side effect of brain bleed and brain swelling. So I always say, how do you know somebody is mild to moderate? I had a patient who always, every day, it was a routine. He would get up in the morning. He just had retired. get up in the morning and go to the closest bodega. He would drive there and have a cup of coffee and read the paper and come home. And his wife, every day, this was a routine. And his wife called me one morning and said, "You know, Tom hasn't come back." I said, "Okay, so call the bodega and find out where he is." So she called and they said he never came this morning. So she reported it to the police, and we were tracking everything to find him. Then later that afternoon, the police in, I think, Maryland or Virginia found him. And he ran out of gas. So what happened was he already had dementia until somebody does something dramatic. You don't know that it's, I mean, I could be talking to you right now and you would think that I'm
Yep.
okay. But it could, God forbid, it could be beginning of dementia, and you won't know till I do something dramatic.
Right.
You can't ask my kids; they think I already have it.
Well, listen, I'm Italian. My daughter thinks the same, but I want to share something with you. So, with my dad,
Right.
okay? So, wait, I have a question first, and then I'll share the story with you. They told me that for the first 7 to 10 years, it's brewing in someone's brain and you don't even know it. Is that true?
Exactly true. Now look,
Really?
this is Alzheimer's, okay?
Yeah.
When you ask people, is there, like for you, do you guys know if there's a difference between Alzheimer's and dementia?
Well, I do a little bit now only because my aunt is diagnosed with dementia. Just a little bit. So you tell us the difference.
Okay, so dementia is an umbrella term, okay? Like, you know how you have a cold and people demonstrate a cold in different ways. Some people have a strep throat, some have, rhinopharyngitis, some have sneezes, some have coffee. These are all different symptoms of
Okay.
cold, right? So if you take the word cold and replace it by the word dementia, dementia is an umbrella term just to describe. Am I talking too fast?
No, I love it. No.
I mean, I'm like
You're
really
passionate.
passionate.
No, come on.
So dementia is just a word to describe different symptoms. Like you have problem solving, you have short-term memory problem, you have judgment and reasoning problem.
Oh.
These are all dementia, but there are different types of dementias. The most common form is Alzheimer's disease.
Okay. I was told something like that. Okay, go ahead.
So, Alzheimer's disease is the most common form, and that's where the brain starts to deteriorate and changes happen very slowly. So, when I told you about that guy, Tom, it's like, little things. You do silly things, right? You forget your keys somewhere and
Yep.
you put by mistake, you don't know why you went into a room and all that, right?
Yep.
The senior moments that happen to all of us. So you can't say, "Oh, this one has dementia or Alzheimer's," but it happens so slowly, sneaky. By the 8th year, you're already into the moderate stage, and you do something dramatic, and then the family says, "Uh-oh, something isn't right." Now, I'm surprised that FDA approved this medication and Medicare is paying for it. I'm not sure, don't quote me, but it's about $56,000 a year. So I say the side effects are brain bleed and brain swell, or you stop the disease. So you pick your poison. How do you want to go? Kind of a thing.
So my dad, I'll tell you the little story now. So my dad, we all lived on the same road in Robbinsville, New Jersey, 6 houses. My aunt, his brother, all of us, my cousin, my brother, me. All
Lucky
right.
you.
So we were all very, very close. And my father could go to any state and drive, and he could come back and tell you exactly how to get wherever. He was that incredible, right? One day, he's got a doctor's appointment local. The doctor was 20 minutes away. An hour goes by, and the doctor calls my brother because he's on, okay. And he says, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Let me call my dad. He left a long time ago." Calls my father. My father tells him he's lost on Quaker Bridge Road, which is only 10 minutes from our house. That let my brother know something's not right. He's like, "What is wrong with you, Gerardo?" He's like, "You're on Quaker Bridge Road. You drive that, that's near our house." My father ended up 2 hours away. My brother had to stay on the phone with him for over 2 hours and get him to our home. That was when we knew something was wrong. And then that same week, my daughter and I, we were doing some catering at the time for this big event. She's at my house down the road. Now my daughter, when my mother died, we built an apartment in my dad's house, broke his house in half, and my daughter lived there. Okay, my father calls me and he says, "We have a woman here looking for you."
There you go.
So I go, "A woman?" He goes, "Yeah, she's in Tiffany's house." Now, he would never let a woman go in Tiffany's house. So I said, "Dad, you let a woman go?" "Yeah, she just said she's looking for you guys." I said, "All right." I said, "Let me call my brother." I said, "He'll come over." And I knew instantly. And I called my brother and I said, "We have a serious problem. Go to Dad's now." And he was right next door. And then the worst part was he looked in the mirror. This was when we knew now. He looked in the mirror and called my brother up screaming, "There's a man in here trying to kill me." So we had to, for my father, and we had to take all the mirrors down in his case. And then I read everything I could get my hands on, and I want to share this with everyone listening if you're dealing with this. They said make it as simple as possible at first when they still know things and it's the very beginning to us, So I put signs on his fridge and it says food, with a picture of food. I put his underwear in one drawer, underwear, shirts. I made it so easy for my dad, dishes, glasses, and that helped a lot. But when it got worse, this is what I did. I bought 12. They told me he's not going to know you eventually, but make something familiar. So I got these 12 gray sweatshirts that had cat cartoon faces going like this. My father knew the second I walked in, I wore them every day. I walked in and he would smile and go like a cat and then hug me. So he didn't know who I was, but he knew because of the cat.
Something familiar.
Yes. So it's just so heartbreaking. But Mimi, tell us a little bit more for people listening, what they could do to make it a little easier for them.
For caregivers, right? The minute you find out that something is not right, first of all, most people don't even think, right, of preparing themselves for paperwork, power of attorney, medical power of attorney. Get all your legal papers, your ducks in a row, because you don't know how, it could go. There are different paths this disease can take. It can go like a very nice slope, or it can go a medium, or it can crash. So you don't know which way. It's best, I say, when you're at the age of 60, it's really good to go ahead and make all your,
Oh boy.
papers in order. It's so imperative because one of the lawyers that, work with me, he has 6 children. And his youngest one is 18 and he got hurt. 18 or maybe a minor. Oh, yeah. A minor, right. And he got hurt and he took his son to the emergency room and they wouldn't talk to him. He's a lawyer. And he said, "Why? That's my son." "Well, no power of attorney." So it's just, and he goes, "Every time my kids hit 18 after that," he prepared all the papers. So caregivers are not prepared. And the other thing is, there's so much education than what you suffered in those days, right? Right now, I run a support group in Monmouth County for Monmouth County caregivers for dementia patients, and one in Ocean County. Now, my company does provide lunch for them, and I discuss and educate the caregivers, or take each. There's so much knowledge, right? Because they share with each other what their hardship is, the screaming at night, the short-term memory. We learn all that, the sundowning, and it's very educational. So they should really sort this out and go to these meetings. They're very educational and very supportive. I have a lot of crying going on. So the caregivers have been suppressed. They have no place to kind of share how they feel because you get in a routine, right? You get up, you have to take care of your loved ones, you come home, you're exhausted, you don't even have time to eat. You don't want to eat dinner. You're like so tired. It's such a hard job. And you go to sleep, so they get sick and they don't have time to even cry. So when they come to these support groups, it's really good because I bring a lot of tissues.
Oh, so they're saying now that they believe a lot of diabetic insulin is partly to blame for a lot of Alzheimer's out there. My dad shot insulin for over 20 years,
Right,
and then he ended up in a sugar coma. This is when I was young. I was in my 30s. I'm
right.
63 now, and we brought him to Robert Wood Johnson, and then I brought him to Dr. Joel Furman when I picked him up out of there. Dr.
Mhm.
Joel Furman's even been on Oprah. Dr. Joel Furman's a good friend of mine, and he's a medical doctor, very intelligent medical doctor, and he went all natural. And he's written books and everything. My father is now featured in his book, Eat to Live. I brought him there, and he got my dad off of shooting insulin for over 20 years in 1 week through diet. He said my dad was his best patient. My dad did incredible. He didn't get Alzheimer's until he was like very close to 80. He had a great life. I thank God for that. But what do you think about the insulin?
I don't know. There hasn't been enough research done. But one thing you said that's very, very powerful, in the blue zones, they live 100 healthy. They're still picking their own food and cooking it. So diet is a powerful part. What you put in, it's powerful.
Yeah,
And that's why they live so long and that's why they're healthy.
yeah,
So, there's something to say about
yeah,
eating right.
yeah. I've been a
And
vegan
we have
over
so
30 years now.
we have so many chemicals now, right? It has to do some damage.
Yeah,
But as far as the cause of it, I'll tell you, there's something called early onset.
okay.
So I have a 54-year-old right now,
It's horrible.
full blown, and then we had a 36-year-old,
Okay.
and she was pregnant with her sixth child, full blown. We can't treat her because she's pregnant. And that is so heartbreaking when you see that. You come home and that's why sometimes when I come home and anybody, all my friends, I'll call them, and if they say I have a headache, I go, be thankful, I don't want to hear it.
Right.
Because the
Right.
caregivers go through so much that I'm not sympathetic to any headaches.
I get it. No, I get it. Well, what would you like to say, Doc G?
Well, yeah, there's so many things that are related. I would say diet and exercise probably, but from what I know about the Alzheimer's and dementia, um, it's a crippling disease, as you said, and I definitely agree with that. And I've seen it, heard a lot of people in my life, especially my dad. But because of the brain tissue, and because of the brain is made of what 80%, 90% fat, and people cut fat out of their diets. And I understand being vegan and stuff like that, and there's no fat.
No, there's fat. I eat an avocado
There's
every
there's
day.
different kinds of
Yep.
fat, right?
The good fat.
Every
good
day
fat,
of
right.
my life. I have like 12 to 24 in my fridge always.
See, I would agree with Jerry because there's a 72-year-old woman. I believe she's on TikTok and other platforms, but she looks like she's in her 40s, and she has her brains and everything, and she has a husband that's in his late 60s, and he looks older than her, but he eats regular sad diet. So you would say 90% of the problem is probably diet with the people. They
And
don't want to give
exercise.
up anything. They don't want to give up
And
their sugars
exercise.
and fats and stuff.
And movement is the way to go. And when you were talking about Alzheimer's, there are different kinds of dementia, right? Some are curable, some are not. Like Alzheimer's disease doesn't have a cure. And then you have things that people don't even know. You have vascular dementia, you have Parkinson's, you have hydrocephalus, you have frontotemporal dementia, you have B12 deficiency dementia, which is curable. You have alcoholism, which is curable. So there are so many different types of dementia, which people use Alzheimer's and dementia interchangeably. And that's
Wow.
not the way, that's not correct.
Wow.
Yeah, and um, short-term memory is the biggest thing. Like if you ask a patient, what did you have for breakfast an hour after they ate? They don't remember. The last information in your brain is the first thing to go. But the long term memory is the last thing to go.
Yes.
So that's why they say music therapy, things that you grew up with, that kind of music, pet therapy, art therapy. We're really bringing that back in because patients, especially, can relate to the music therapy like you wouldn't believe. Because people who haven't spoken for ages, if you turn on, like I know what to turn on for Jerry, it's Elvis.
Elvis, baby.
Elvis, yeah.
Right.
Her
And
husband,
this
Sid, Dr. Sid, baby, he's also an Elvis guy.
right. So what we have to do is, find out from if you go to a good place, right? They'll take interest in you as a caregiver to find out what ticked that patient. Because patients that haven't spoken for years, you turn on something they're familiar with long, long time ago. Like I'll ask my patients, "Hey, what was your uh, teacher's name in first grade?" Do you know they remember
Yeah.
that? But
I
they won't
remember my
remember what they
favorite
had.
teacher. Yeah. Miss
But they won't
Martin.
remember. Do you remember what you had for breakfast, Jerry?
Yeah, an avocado and a banana. Yes.
Yeah. They don't remember that an hour after they eat. It's just, I don't know how to think about it. It's very emotional because when you get to a certain stage, you're just existing.
You're right.
I mean, that's it. There's nothing in you. You're just the shell. And all it is taxing on all the people you
That's right.
love. And we're kinder to dogs.
I say that all the time.
Where is Kevorkian when you need him?
I say that all the time. My brother and I are very different in some ways. We're like best friends. We grew up together and we're 5 minutes from each other. But my brother is the logical one. My brother, I'm the artist. My brother took over my dad's business with my dad years ago and still has it. He's the logical one. All right. But when this all happened with my dad, and the last year of his life, he was pretty much bedridden. My brother, his heart, my brother can't deal with the pain. So I
Oh,
pretended, I called up the doctor and I said, "Doc, my dad shouldn't be on this medicine anymore, right?" And he said, "Jerry, you don't have to give your dad the medicine anymore." So I called my brother and I said, "Oh, the doctor called me and said we don't need," and he said, "Oh, okay," because if I would have told my brother I want to take dad off, he would have been like, "No, no, no." But so, everyone has to deal with it their way, but
correct.
they are a shell, and it's heartbreaking to watch that.
I do it every day,
I
and
know.
and you're right. Every caregiver some know their loved ones so well that they know they don't want to go, right? So then you have to deal with it. Till some are religious beliefs, some are people beliefs, but I know what I want after seeing, how many people have really suffered.
Me too, baby.
Yeah, it's really.
We're very strong people, you and I. I'm too strong to live like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just very degrading.
Yes. Yes.
Very
My
degrading.
poor father would have wanted me to smother him.
Yes,
If I wasn't
yes.
a Christian, I probably would have done that for him.
Oh yeah.
But
Then
listen, I
then you
get it.
wouldn't be talking to me. You'd be behind bars.
That's right. Very heartbreaking. The other thing that with my dad with the music. Now, my dad didn't know me. I would take him out to lunch when I was, in the beginning, I was able to still take me and my brother would take him out to eat every day. You know, I put on an Italian song and he was singing to it.
I told
I
you.
know.
The long term is just wonderful.
Amazing, right?
It's the only thing that really, if you bring albums, I always tell the caregivers, listen, bring albums with pictures because they can remember that.
Yes.
And being in a facility, you were talking about your aunt. If today people, caregivers don't have the luxury, they have to work. They can't be there 24/7, and neither can they afford to have caregivers, right? And now it's like, I think the going rate is $35 to $40 an hour.
Yeah.
So it's really tough for people to
Yes.
to do that. And you said your aunt was in a facility, and I always tell the caregiver when they're struggling and they have the patient and their loved ones at home, I go, look, they. Oh, that reminds me of a story. There was a man who went to a doctor's in Long Branch. It's a true story.
Okay.
And he tells the doctor, and this story came from the doctor who
Okay.
saw him. He goes, "Can you please hurry up? I got to go see my." He went for his blood work. Hurry up! I need to go see my wife because I have lunch with her. So the doctor looks at him and says, "I'm sorry, I got sidetracked, but this is such a cute story."
Yeah.
So he says, "Well, wait a second. I thought that your wife had dementia, Alzheimer's. So she won't know if you're a little late." He goes, "Yeah, but I do." Oh, that was so touching.
Um,
Beautiful. But I always tell the caregivers, take things that they can relate to, albums and songs and
yeah.
things like that. And when you put them in a facility, sometimes it's better because the caregiver gets a break.
Yeah.
Okay? You don't need to be there 24/7, but you spend quality time, not quantity.
Right.
They take care of the hard stuff on caregivers, the medication, the showers, the feeding, all that grooming, the brushing of their teeth, the hair. All that is done by the facility. So you, as a caregiver, when you go, you're spending quality time.
Yeah. They hate showers because they never had them when they were little. My
Right.
dad grew up in Italy.
Bathing. Excuse me.
Yes. And
Bathing.
they would scream when you're trying to get them in the shower because what are you doing to me, It's really heartbreaking.
Well, some of the research, that's very interesting that you brought that up. Some of the research indicates that most of the patients don't like showers, whether they were from the old times or
Right.
our times or whatever. And the reason being that I was so surprised when I read this research that the reason why they don't like showers is they already know inside that something, uh, they've lost something in their brain. They know that. It's not that they don't. Okay? So when they go to shower, they feel that something, they'll lose more of something. It will wash away. Isn't that terrible?
Oh, heartbreaking.
And the reason why the communication is not so clear, even if they know something and they want to say something, it doesn't come out of the mouth. There's a reason. There's a kind of dementia called Lewy body dementia, okay, where
Okay.
they discovered the plaques and, tangles and all that gooey stuff that happens in your brain that causes Lewy body dementia. Now, they interfere with the communication channels. So if the brain wants to say something, yours will connect to come out of the mouth. Theirs, the brain knows what it wants to say, but there's that amyloid protein, so it's not connecting to come out. That must be so frustrating because they're not stupid. They know
Right.
what they want to say.
Right.
It's just they know something is wrong. So if they feel they've lost something, then the research indicated that when they go in the shower, they feel they're going to wash out whatever
Oh,
brain
wow.
they have left.
I got to tell people that now. That's wow. Wow. So, I know you're a little, with time, but we have a few minutes left. What would you like to say to the caregivers that are listening?
First of all, it gives me chills that they're doing the God's job, hardest job ever. Okay, a kid you can smack and put them in the backseat of the car. This is your loved one. This is an adult which you can't treat, and the roles get reversed. The child becomes the parent. So, and nobody, no parent wants to accept that, right? So I want to salute them. I want to say thank you. You're doing the hardest job. And just for your own sake, please reach out to support groups. There are other people that are going through what you're going through, and sometimes even worse, that will at least, and you learn a lot from other people. So take care of yourself. You're the foundation. And if the foundation breaks, what happens to your loved one? Take care of yourself.
Well, Mira, thank you so much for honoring us today with all
Thank
this.
you for giving me an opportunity to reach out.
No, this
Because
is
these
incredible.
caregivers have nobody sometimes. Everybody disappears. Like when you turn on the light, the cockroaches run. That's what happens when people find out that your husband, your wife has dementia. People don't know how to deal with it. They're not educated. So they run away. And it's a very lonely world. So
Yes.
thank you so much for doing such a great thing to give me an opportunity to share this.
Well, you honored us here today, honestly. And, you touched somebody out there, probably more than one person, but you definitely touched somebody out there today who needed to hear everything you had to say.
Oh,
Be-
thank you. And I hope they reach out to you so you can connect them to the support groups.
I will. Give them some information, like how they can get in touch with some support groups.
They can always call me, and maybe you can post my number, or do you want me to say it
You could
now?
say your number. Go ahead.
It's 732-740-3900. Again, it's 732-740-3900. Anytime if you're a caregiver, and I'll hook you up with the support groups, whether you're in Monmouth or Ocean County.
And guys, you can reach out to me as well to get in touch with Mira. So, Dr. Mira Ahuja, thank you so much for honoring us here today. You know how much I love you, Mira, and
Thank
really,
you.
honestly, you touched my heart today and so many others. So, thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you. Bye, Doc. Thank you.
Wait,
Oh, bye, Dr. Mira. You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
all right. Mwah. Thank you,
Take care.
sweetheart.
God bless.
God
Bye-bye.
bless you too.